The alarm clock buzzed loudly, but Jake Thompson ignored it. He'd barely slept after a late-night business meeting that stretched into the early hours of the morning. Rolling out of bed, he glanced at the time, already 7:30 a.m. His heart sank. They were going to be late. "Emily, hurry up," Jake called out, rushing down the hallway. His 6-year-old daughter, Emily, emerged from her room dragging her favorite stuffed bunny behind her. Her blonde hair was tangled, and she still wore her pajamas. "We're gonna miss the train, Daddy," Emily said sleepily, rubbing her eyes. "I know, sweetie. Just grab your shoes. We'll make it." Jake's voice was tense as he hurriedly packed snacks and water bottles into a small backpack. By the time they reached the train station, Jake was sweating, not just from running but from stress. The morning had been a blur of phone calls, emails, and last-minute decisions. As they boarded the crowded train, Jake immediately pulled out his phone to check some urgent messages. "Stay close, Em," he muttered distractedly, scrolling through emails. Emily nodded, clutching her bunny tightly. She loved riding the train with her dad, even if he was always busy working. Still, she wished he'd look up and smile at her like he used to when Mommy was around. Minutes passed, and the train began to move. That's when Jake's stomach dropped. Something felt wrong. He looked around, scanning the seats near him. Where was Emily? "Emily?" he called out, standing up abruptly. Passengers turned to stare, annoyed by the commotion. Panic surged through him as he realized the truth. In his haste to answer one more email, he'd forgotten to double-check that Emily had followed him onto the train. "No, no, no," Jake muttered, rushing toward the doors. But it was too late. The train was already pulling away from the platform. Through the window, he caught a glimpse of Emily standing alone on the platform, tears streaming down her face. She looked so small, so scared. Jake's knees nearly buckled. How could he have let this happen? Emily stood frozen on the platform, her tiny hands gripping her stuffed bunny like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The train disappeared into the distance, taking her daddy with it. Her lower lip trembled as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Daddy!" she cried out, her voice cracking with fear. But the bustling crowd around her paid no attention. People hurried past, their faces buried in phones or newspapers, oblivious to the little girl who had been left behind. For a moment, Emily just stood there, hoping, praying, that her dad would come running back for her. But as the minutes ticked by and no one came, panic set in. She started walking aimlessly, clutching her bunny tighter, unsure of where to go or what to do. The station felt enormous and overwhelming, full of loud noises and unfamiliar faces. Every shadow seemed darker, every stranger scarier. Emily's heart raced as she tried to remember what her dad always told her. "If you ever get lost, stay calm and find someone safe to help you." But who was safe? Everyone looked so big, so busy. No one even glanced at her. Finally, exhausted and terrified, Emily collapsed onto a bench near the edge of the platform. She hugged her bunny close, whispering softly to it. "Where's Daddy? He'll come back, right?" That's when Maya noticed her. Maya had been sitting nearby, quietly observing the chaos of the station. Homeless and struggling to survive, she'd learned to blend into the background, unnoticed by most people. But something about the little girl tugged at her heart. A child alone, crying silently, looking utterly lost. Slowly, Maya approached her. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said gently, kneeling down to Emily's level. "Are you lost?" Emily looked up, startled. For a moment, she hesitated, unsure whether to trust this stranger. Maya's clothes were worn, her hair tied back in a loose bun, but her eyes were kind, warm, and steady. I can't find my daddy," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face again. "It's okay," Maya reassured her, offering a small smile. "We'll figure it out together." "What's your name?" "Emily," the little girl sniffled. "Well, Emily, I'm Maya, and I promise I won't leave you alone. Okay?" Maya sat beside her, wrapping her own thin jacket around Emily's shoulders. The girl shivered, not just from the cold, but from everything that had happened. Tell me about your daddy, Maya encouraged softly. What does he look like? He's tall, Emily began, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. And he wears glasses. He's really smart, but sometimes he forgets things. Her voice trailed off, and fresh tears welled up in her eyes. Maya nodded sympathetically. He probably realized you're missing by now. I bet he's looking for you everywhere. As they talked, Maya kept an eye out for any sign of trouble. The station wasn't the safest place for a child, especially one as young as Emily. Determined to protect her, Maya decided to stay put until help arrived, or until Emily's dad found them. For the first time since being left behind, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, everything would be all right. As the hours passed, Maya did everything she could to keep Emily calm and comfortable. She rummaged through her bag, a patched-up tote filled with odds and ends, and pulled out a slightly crumpled sandwich wrapped in foil. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. Here, sweetheart, Maya said, handing the sandwich to Emily. You must be hungry. Emily hesitated at first, unsure if she should take food from a stranger. But Maya's gentle smile put her at ease. Thank you, Emily murmured before taking a small bite. You're welcome, Maya replied warmly. I used to have a little girl about your age. She loved sandwiches too. Emily perked up at that. What happened to her? Maya's expression softened, tinged with sadness. She grew up and moved far away, but I still think about her every day. The two of them sat together on the bench, talking quietly as the world buzzed around them. Emily told Maya about her daddy, how he worked a lot but always made time for bedtime stories, how he promised to take her to the zoo next weekend, and how sometimes he forgot things like today. Maya listened patiently, nodding along. Sounds like your daddy loves you very much, she said. He'll come back for you, Emily. I know he will. Despite her reassurances, Maya couldn't shake the worry gnawing at her. The longer they waited, the more dangerous it became. The station was crowded during the day, but once night fell, it would attract people who weren't so kind. To distract Emily, Maya began pointing out interesting things around them. A bird flying overhead, a musician playing guitar near the entrance, a funny-looking dog trotting alongside its owner. Each discovery brought a tiny smile to Emily's face, easing some of the fear that lingered in her big blue eyes. At one point, Emily noticed Maya shivering despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. Aren't you cold? She asked innocently. I'm fine, sweetheart, Maya lied, wrapping her arms around herself. In truth, she hadn't eaten anything since yesterday morning, and the chill in the air was starting to seep into her bones. Still, she refused to let Emily see her discomfort. You're really nice, Emily said suddenly, looking up at Maya with admiration. Are you my new friend? Maya chuckled softly, touched by the question. Yes, Emily, I'm your friend. Their bond deepened with each passing moment. For Emily, Maya became a source of comfort and safety in an otherwise scary situation. And for Maya, protecting this little girl reignited a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. But even as they laughed and talked, Maya kept scanning the crowd, hoping to spot someone searching frantically for a lost child. Surely Emily's dad would show up soon. Finally, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Maya spotted movement near the station entrance. A tall man with glasses rushed inside, his face pale with panic. He scanned the area desperately, calling out, Emily, where are you? Emily's eyes widened in recognition. Daddy, she cried, jumping off the bench and running toward him. Jake froze mid-step, relief washing over him as he saw his daughter racing toward him. Dropping to his knees, he caught her in his arms, holding her tightly as tears streamed down his face. Oh, Emily, he choked out, kissing the top of her head. I'm so sorry. I thought I'd lost you forever. Emily clung to him, sobbing happily. Daddy, I was so scared. I know, baby. I'm here now. I've got you. From a distance, Maya watched the reunion, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. She wanted to slip away unnoticed. After all, she'd done what she set out to do. But Jake noticed her lingering presence. Standing up, he approached her cautiously. "Excuse me," he said, his voice trembling with gratitude. Did you find her?" Maya nodded simply. "She was sitting alone when I found her. I stayed with her to make sure she was safe." Jake stared at her, overwhelmed by her kindness. "Thank you," he said earnestly. "You saved my daughter. I can never repay you." Maya shrugged modestly. Anyone would have done the same. But as Jake looked closer, something about her face struck a chord deep within him. Had he seen her before? Before he could ask, Maya turned to leave, disappearing into the crowd. Jake's relief at finding Emily was quickly overshadowed by guilt and confusion. As he held his daughter tightly, tears streaming down both their faces, his mind raced with questions. Who was the woman who had saved her? Why did she seem so familiar? And how could he have been so careless as to leave his own child behind? "Daddy, that lady Maya, she took care of me," Emily said softly, interrupting his thoughts. "She gave me food and kept me safe." Jake nodded, still shaken. "I know, sweetheart. She's a hero." But inside, Jake felt like anything but a hero. He replayed the morning in his head, the rushed breakfast, the endless emails, the split-second decision to step onto the train without checking if Emily was following. How could he have let work distract him from the most important person in his life? After calming Emily down and ensuring she was unharmed, Jake turned his attention back to Maya. By now, she had vanished into the crowd, leaving no trace behind. Determined to find her, Jake flagged down a security guard and described her appearance. "She saved my daughter," Jake explained urgently. "I need to thank her properly." The guard nodded, promising to keep an eye out for her. But Jake knew time was critical. If Maya didn't want to be found, she wouldn't be. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, and his connection to it, than met the eye. Back at his office, Jake launched a full-scale search effort. He contacted local shelters, community centers, and outreach programs, asking if anyone recognized Maya's description. He also reached out to private investigators, sparing no expense to track her down. Meanwhile, images of Maya lingered in his mind. Her worn clothes, her quiet strength, her piercing gaze. It all felt hauntingly familiar. Jake spent hours poring over old company records, scrolling through employee files and photos from years ago. Something about her nagged at him, like a memory buried just out of reach. Finally, late that night, it clicked. Jake stumbled upon an old photograph tucked away in a folder labeled "Former Employees." In the picture stood Lisa Harper, a bright, ambitious woman who had worked under him years earlier. Her smile was warm, her confidence evident even through the grainy image. But what struck Jake most was the resemblance between Lisa and Maya. His stomach churned as he read the accompanying notes. Lisa had been one of his top employees until a corporate restructuring forced her out. At the time, Jake had dismissed her termination as collateral damage, a necessary sacrifice for the sake of profit. But now, staring at her photo, he realized the devastating impact his decision must have had on her life. "Oh no," Jake whispered, his heart sinking. "It can't be." The pieces fell into place. Maya wasn't just some kind stranger. She was Lisa Harper, the very woman whose career and livelihood he had destroyed. And yet, despite everything he'd done to her, she had shown nothing but compassion to his daughter. Jake felt sick with shame. How could someone he wronged so deeply still possess such humanity? What kind of man had he become that he failed to see the consequences of his actions? Determined to make amends, Jake redoubled his efforts to find her. He visited shelters, walked through neighborhoods, and spoke to anyone who might know where she went. His desperation grew with each passing day, fueled not only by gratitude, but also by a deep need to confront his past mistakes. Finally, after days of searching, a lead came in. A volunteer at a soup kitchen recognized Maya's description and provided an address where she occasionally stayed. Jake didn't waste a second. Grabbing his coat, he headed straight there, praying he wasn't too late. Jake arrived at the address, a small, weathered building tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. The sign above the door read Hope House, and through the windows, he could see volunteers bustling about, serving meals to those in need. His heart pounded as he stepped inside, scanning the room for any sign of Maya, or rather, Lisa. First, he didn't see her. The space was filled with people, some sitting alone, others chatting quietly over plates of food. Then, near the back of the room, he spotted her. She was helping an elderly man carry his tray to a table, her movements gentle and unhurried. For a moment, Jake simply stood there, watching her. Despite the years that had passed, there was no mistaking it. This was Lisa Harper. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with gray, and her face bore the lines of hardship, but her eyes were the same, warm, resilient, and full of quiet strength. Summoning his courage, Jake approached her. "Lisa," he called out softly. She turned, startled, and their eyes met. For a split second, recognition flickered across her face, followed by something else. Sadness, perhaps, or resignation. "Mr. Thompson," she said evenly, her voice calm but guarded. "It's you," Jake breathed, taking a step closer. I've been looking everywhere for you." Lisa raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Why? You found your daughter. That's what matters." "Yes, but—" Jake hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "You saved her. You kept her safe when I couldn't. I owe you everything." Lisa shook her head firmly. "You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone should have done." "But it wasn't just anyone. It was you," Jake insisted. "And after everything I put you through, I can't believe you still showed such kindness." Her expression softened slightly, though her tone remained measured. "That was a long time ago, Mr. Thompson. Water under the bridge." "No, it's not," Jake countered, his voice breaking with emotion. "What I did to you, it wasn't fair. I ruined your life, and I never even stopped to think about it. Seeing you again, realizing who you are, it's made me face things I've tried to ignore for years." Lisa studied him carefully, searching his face for sincerity. Finally, she sighed and gestured toward an empty table nearby. "Let's sit down." As they settled into chairs across from each other, Jake poured his heart out. He apologized for firing her unjustly, for prioritizing profits over people, and for failing to recognize the human cost of his decisions. "I'm so sorry, Lisa," he said, tears welling up in his eyes. "If I could go back and undo what I did, I would. But since I can't, I want to make things right. Please, tell me how I can help you." To his surprise, Lisa smiled faintly. "You already helped me, Mr. Thompson, by raising a daughter like Emily. She's proof that there's still goodness in this world, even if we sometimes forget to look for it." Jake blinked back tears, humbled by her grace. "Still, I want to do more. Let me give you the resources you need to rebuild your life. A home, a job, whatever you want." Lisa considered his offer for a long moment before nodding slowly. "All right, but on one condition, use your influence to help others too. People like me who've fallen through the cracks. Don't let them be forgotten." "I promise," Jake vowed sincerely. In the weeks that followed, Jake kept his promise. He provided Lisa with a comfortable apartment and helped her secure a stable job at a local nonprofit organization. More importantly, he began using his wealth and influence to create meaningful change. Inspired by Lisa's resilience and compassion, he launched initiatives to support homeless shelters, fund affordable housing projects, and mentor individuals struggling to rebuild their lives. Lisa, for her part, remained humble despite the sudden turn of events. She continued volunteering at Hope House, determined to give back to the community that had supported her during her darkest days. Though she accepted Jake's help, she never let it define her. Instead, she focused on moving forward one step at a time. As for Emily, she adored Lisa and often visited her new friend at the shelter. Their bond remained strong, a testament to the kindness that had brought them together in the first place. For Jake, meeting Lisa again was a wake-up call, a reminder that success without empathy is meaningless. He vowed to be more present, not just for Emily but for everyone whose life he touched. One evening, as Jake sat with Lisa and Emily at a small cafe, he reflected on how much had changed. The three of them laughed and talked, sharing stories and dreams for the future. "You know," Lisa said with a smile. Sometimes life gives us second chances when we least expect them. Jake nodded, looking at Emily and then at Lisa. And sometimes those second chances come from the people we least deserve them from. The sun set behind them, casting a warm glow over the table. For the first time in years, Jake felt truly content. Not because of what he owned, but because of the connections he'd made and the lives he'd begun to heal. The story of Jake, Emily, and Lisa didn't just change their lives. It sparked a ripple effect that reached far beyond them. Inspired by Lisa's compassion and resilience, Jake became an advocate for systemic change. He used his platform to speak out about the importance of kindness, accountability, and second chances. His efforts inspired others to take action in their own communities, proving that even small acts of empathy can create waves of transformation. Lisa found joy again, not just in her newfound stability but in knowing she had made a difference. She often said, "Kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything." And Emily? She grew up with a deeper understanding of gratitude and humanity, thanks to the woman who once held her hand when she needed it most. This story reminds us all that we have the power to make a difference, whether it's through a simple act of kindness or a commitment to creating lasting change. What will you do today to uplift someone else? Share this story to spread its message of hope and compassion. Comment below with your thoughts or experiences of kindness. You never know who might need to hear them. Let's work together to build a world where no one is left behind. Because every person deserves a chance to be seen, valued, and loved. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this journey toward making the world a better place. One act of kindness at a time.